And so the gist of that is those were kind of the two scariest. And then his brain surgery was
I was going to
scary.
say, I was like, you almost just glossed over that. 'Cause
Yes.
I'm like, the one thing, I only remember like bits and pieces, but I'm like, they had to put a stent in his brain to drain fluid.
Shunt.
Or
Yes.
shunt.
Yep. And that ended up being the hardest month of our life was when he had to have his shunt because
That was like, how old was he?
he was 6 months.
I was going to say his first year, right?
Yeah, 6 months. And that ended up being the hardest month of our life because that was when so I worked full-time as a speech therapist. I was planning to go back to work full-time. And in that month of his neurosurgery, he had a shunt placed and then
Because he's having fluid build up on his brain.
Oh,
yeah.
And that was the month, so we lost power at our house, like the days leading up to this surgery. So we were I had so much laundry to do, just minor things, right? But I had so much laundry to do. We finally just packed up. We had to drive to my parents so that Nora could stay with my parents while we went to neurosurgery and hit a deer on the way to my parents' house. And then we made it to neurosurgery. Nolan, we've learned, handled it super well, but the first 48 hours after his neurosurgery were extremely hard. He was throwing up. We couldn't get him to stop throwing up. Now we're learning probably because his brain had all this fluid on it and he was just learning.
Adjusting to the
new normal.
Boy,
and then that was in the same time that we met with a urologist and the urologist discovered that his bladder wasn't emptying fully. So she had recommended we start straight cathing 6 times a day. And so then I, in that same month, I quit my job because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to have somebody else straight cath him. And he wasn't responding, so it was just all these really hard things that month. Now looking back, that was the best month that could have happened to us because
except for the deer.
I
feel like the deer is God really come on.
It was it was because so we had lost power and I was packing up in the dark and Paul walked in the door. My husband's name is Paul, walked in the door and I'm getting ready to go pack up our son for neurosurgery and Paul walks in the door and I'm just bawling and he's like, at this point it's we've seen each other bawling so much, but it's just he walks in, he's just like, okay, it's, it's hard. And I'm like, really, God? What else? Really right now, this month, you're going to add all this. And then we hit the deer on our way home. And then I just remember sitting in the car waiting for my parents. And I'm just, okay, there can always be more, right? This is my reminder of there's always more to be had. Jeez.